when we talk to our clients, when we work with them on building goals, creating goals, having goals, it's something to visualize. It makes us more likely to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
The problem I have is nobody is good at making up goals.
The Sunday series.
The Sunday series. So if you're a client, if you have subscribed, we have a free newsletter that we've started. We kicked it off yesterday, and we're gonna do 52 of them. We're gonna try to hit one every Sunday. It's an email. It's a quick, easy read. It's just to get you thinking, your wheels spinning. All things financial topics. Really, we're trying to teach you more about yourself than we are teaching you about money, because we think that the more people are aware of who they are, aware of what they want, the money stuff is easy to learn and easy to adjust into. So that's kind of the thought process behind the Sunday series. So we kicked off, and we're trying to time these. The podcast will kind of reinforce. We understand everybody learns a little differently, right? Like, we have these things posted to our website. We have the writings that come out via email. We have the video that we post to YouTube, and we have the audio here. So we're really just trying to make sure that everybody can learn this however they want to, the best way they want to. So the email that we're going to be discussing is this notion behind the investor returns versus investment returns. This is our week 2 email. We kind of put out a picture and some writings about this. Why do we need to differentiate between the two? I think it's really, really important because, let's just pretend you get an email, and that email has this really fancy font, and it's colorful, and it looks pretty. And it's like, hey, this mutual fund averages 10% return every year. And you're like, hey, that sounds pretty good. 10% is very sufficient returns for money to be parked somewhere. I like an annualized 10% return. This sounds like it's good for me. So what do? You pull the trigger on it. What ends up happening, though, is after a year or two, let's say that in the first 2 years, the fund only averages 6.5% return. And you're like, hey, that email was malarkey, right? So you sell the fund and you go to the next best thing. So your return was 6.5% average. The fund said 10. Obviously, what happens is, let's just fast forward 8 more years down the road. So now we're 10 years into the future, and in fact, the fund did average 10% again every year, but your return while you held it was only 6.5%. Your investor return, your return was 6.5%. The investment did return 10. It just didn't happen to return it
at that time.
At the time you held it. It's very important to differentiate investor returns versus investment returns, because typically, even though we think we're buying long-term investments, most people don't hold investments for long-term. Right? We see something new, we see something shiny, we got to have it. So we sell the underperforming to get the new hot thing that, we heard about, we read about, our neighbors are doing, somebody sold it to us, whatever the case may be. And what are we doing? We're selling the things that are underperforming, and we're chasing the things that are performing well. And that's really a sexy way of saying we're buying high and selling low. Right? Now, you might think like it is important. The due diligence is important, right? It's important for you. It's important for me. It's important for our clients. It's important for everyone to do the analysis and say, okay, our goal is 8% or our goal is 4% average return, whatever the case may be. And it looks like we're underperforming. Why are we like, analysis is important, but let's not lie to ourselves. Sometimes it's like, hey, this fund is actually returning 20%. We need to buy this fund. Well, what are we doing? We're buying it when it's on fire.
Right.
And what are we doing? In order to create funds, we're usually selling something else, and we're going to sell the laggards. And sometimes things are lagging because they're just bad.
Right.
New fund managers, or new ideologies, new companies in the fund.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes they're just underperforming because the sector's a little off and it just takes time to maneuver through it, right? So investment returns versus investor returns, it's an important differentiation because, and here's the thing, is if I think it's a good way to help us measure how good of an investor we are, right? If my portfolio is built on 8 funds and they're all supposed to average 8%, so my investment returns are 8%, and my return is also 8%, what's that mean? It means I stuck to a plan. I had a portfolio that was really sufficient for me.
Right.
It was risk appropriate. I had the right time horizon. I did all these things right, and I stuck to the plan, even because I guarantee you that, you know, in this made up world that I'm creating here, you know, there were ebbs and flows. There were ups and downs. There were miss years. There were really positive years. And there was a neighbor saying, hey, I'm doing better than you. And there was a relative saying, hey, you need to do this if you love me, you know?
Yeah.
So I really think that there's just so much to understand, and how we can measure ourselves as investors is to say, okay, if my investment returns are doing this, what are my returns? And if there's a margin of error, why does that exist?
Right.
Is it because I made mistakes? Is it because I panicked? Was the account too volatile for me? So we can really learn a lot. But how do you get from being a bad investor to a better investor? How do you get to making sure your investment returns and your investor returns are closely related, are actually the same?
Well, this kind of goes into the New Year's resolution.
Exactly. And I think that is so what is it? How if you were my client, like what would get you, if I told you, hey, I'm building you a portfolio, and based on all the data and all the information that I possibly have, if we stick to this plan for the long term, you should average, with a little bit of margin of error, you should average 6.5% to 8% return. And if that was sufficient to get you, to where you wanted to be, what is it that's going to make you stick to that plan? If we hit a 2008 crisis or a 2022 fiasco, what gets you to stick to the plan?
Again, it's creating goals that are just for me. They're, it's going to be my goal to do this, that, or the other. And if it's my goal, I've got conviction in, what I'm doing.
I think conviction,
the likelihood of sticking with it's much higher.
That's such an important word. We were in show prep and talking about this, and it's wild to me because we all, every financial professional out there, every commercial you see, there's so much behind this ideology of goals-based planning. Your financial professional should know your goals. And that's true. It is 100% true. And we as people, as human beings, most of us are goal-driven people. I was just reading, for Christmas, I got this 1 year, coaching devotional thing. And today it was Tony Dungy was writing about visualizing, and he talked about his practice squad and how his practice squad, the second string guys would play they would take on the persona and the strategy of the team they were about to play. Yeah. So they were, and he said we would come up with a philosophy for the game, or we would come up with these plays, and we would run them on the practice squad to visualize how these are going to work against this particular thing. And it was all about, if we have goals and we can visualize them, we are much high, the success rate is much higher. So he's talking about this visualization piece. And, when we talk to our clients, when we work with them on building goals, creating goals, having goals, it's something to visualize. It makes us more likely to be successful. The problem I have is nobody is good at making up goals.
Right.
It is it is very, very, and like
it really is like pulling teeth sometimes with clients.
Well, we are
like,
bad at it. Like, like human beings, like I guarantee you, if I asked, like poll the audience, I'll put it in our Spotify thing, like to poll the audience on like, what are your goals, or how do you create your goals? I would bet that if I polled 20 people on a financial goal, it would be something to do with retirement,
cookie cutter,
saving, budgeting. Like if I polled 10,000 people, I bet 9,950, if I had to bet, would have some goal on like education planning, paying down debt, budgeting, retirement, like 5 or 6 different things. So you're telling me out of millions of people in this world, somehow we just all come up with these same super important goals that we're so convicted of. I'm so convicted that I need to retire when I'm 65. It's just kind of like we're bad at it.
Right.
And so
it's very shallow.
And we need to create so we developed a process, because I think it is a process. First of all, goal creation, planning your goals. It's not something to do on December 31st and you're just going to nail it starting January 1. Yep. It's not an overnight thing. It's a process, and a process that needs to be nurtured. It needs to be, you need a coach. You need to have people in your life that are going to help you be accountable to the things that you say and do. You're also going to need to monitor your progress, and you need to learn how to measure. It's also important to understand, like sometimes goals, like we can have like one big goal. My goal might be to eliminate debt in 2023.
Right.
Okay. So I'm going to eliminate debt. Well, I also might have, between my house, my credit cards, my cars, my college debt, all these things, I might have $500,000 in debt. Like, a typical 20 to 30 year person with a house, with a college education, with a car, with all that stuff is going to have several $100,000 of debt. So you're just going to eliminate that in 1 year on we'll say $120,000 income?
Right.
Probably not.
You're not.
Probably not, right? So we need to understand how to create small goals that build and help us progress to the big overarching thing. What
you have to dig a little bit deeper.
That's
kind of what
you said. Pulling teeth, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah. But for us as advisors, like making our clients dig deeper.
And it's a process that starts for us. We kind of do this. I think I have like 3 main pieces of that, right? Yeah. First one, we're going to create a kind of vision statement or a statement of purpose. Yep. And then I'm going to tell my clients to go home and just write down every good idea or goal that they think they have, that they want to have, that they feel they should have, or even if it's weird, right? Even if it's like totally not financial related, just go write this, like make the list. I don't care if it's 1,000 things long.
Just and then bring it back into us.
Let's sit down. Now we scrub it. Yep. We scrub it 2 ways. One, we make sure none of the goals conflict with one another, right? Sometimes saving more money and having that boat, they aren't going to work together very well, right? So sometimes if you're already saving enough money, maybe saving more isn't the right thing, because your purpose in life is to have fun, spend time with friends and family,
right?
And if that's really, really important, that's where your heart gets convicted. Maybe that boat will be and if you're saving enough to meet all your other goals,
right?
Maybe that's the right goal. So we scrub goals against goals. We prioritize them. And then we make sure we do another scrub, and we make sure that the goals aren't counterintuitive to the purpose of their life. And sometimes that process can take weeks or months even. Right. It's a hard process. So I
feel like we talk to clients, when we have our annual reviews or we're talking to them quarterly, like, always having new goals to be working towards our sprints.
Yeah.
Keeping those small goals, but making sure that they do align.
Well, and that's, I think, so important, those sprints that you mentioned. Like, sometimes I think we can create a goal and it's just like, okay, I want to retire at 65. What do I do next?
Right.
Like what? So what I think is helpful for our clients. Very
exciting. Like what's going to get you up in the morning?
You got to
just saying I'm going to retire at 65. Nah, that's not going to do it. It
needs to be super specific.
Right.
But those sprints, it's just like, hey, this is what I want you to, this is your very next step. this is what I want you to do for the next 100 meters,
Mm-hmm.
right? I want you to run this sprint. I want you to accomplish this task and then come back and see me for the next thing. And then we're going to stack these sprints one after another. And before you know it, the marathon's going to be over. Yep. And so that's the ideology of how we kind of work and keep people on track. The question I want to ask you is, what's like the most unique goal that you've ever had for yourself? Like, it doesn't even have to be financially. It doesn't even have to be a financial goal.
We were talking earlier. My main goal, or one of my like goofy goals, was to quit drinking soda. And one day I just stopped drinking it, and like, have to force yourself to stick with it because you want that sugar and the caffeine and all the other good stuff.
What was it about that you were so like, what do you think made you, what was your convictions there? Why was that an important goal? And then what made you successful in it?
I had, I guess, more of just a health thing. Drinking soda is not good for you.
Right.
And all the studies about, it's, could cause, dementia, and there's all kinds of studies out there that talks about that. So I was like, you know what, I'm just going to quit drinking soda, force myself to drink water, and just do that. And that's one of my weird goals that I set for myself.
I was I was in the Army, and I was doing a lot of like MMA, jiu-jitsu competitions, and being physically fit was incredibly important to me. And I was surrounded with some very, very driven guys, and we would show up to the fight house together. We would train together, and I could point to a guy that could squat more than me. I could point to a guy that could bench press more than me. I was getting beat by this one guy in sprints every day. Mm-hmm. I was pretty good at distance running, but there was still a dude that was faster than me. There was just like, it was competitive, and you want to know that you have some sort of competitive edge in this world. It's a confidence booster when like, hey, the guys that I'm training with are best of the best, and I'm better at this than this guy. And I didn't really have anything. So we were one day, me and a guy, we were holding planks, mm-hmm. and I beat him, but not by much. And I wasn't even sure that he was the best at planking in the gym. So I just internalized this goal of being able to hold a 10-minute plank. I was like, I'm going to hold a 10-minute plank. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it once. That way I'm highly confident at that point that anybody that comes in this gym, I can hold a plank longer than they can. Mm-hmm. And I did it. And it was an arbitrary goal. It didn't like make me a better jiu-jitsu artist. It didn't make me like significantly stronger, faster. It was just a
little confidence boost that you need.
It was just important to me that I knew that I was better at something than anybody else, or something. I was better at something than anyone else in that gym. Mm-hmm. And it gave me a lot of confidence. And so that was probably the most like arbitrary goal that I ever had, but it was super unique and important to me. And once I accomplished it, people would walk in the gym and be like, hey, let's hold a plank. Let's see who can go longer. And I'd beat them, and then we'd go and like, start fighting each other, and I'd be in their head because I beat them in a plank. It was just really fun. But that's the kind of stuff, like personal goals. Like you are a unique human being. You are an individual, that you have the things inside of you that make you tick, that do not make the next person tick. Yep. So if you're working with a financial professional,
we don't want your neighbor's goals.
I don't want your neighbor's goals. I don't want your I don't want whatever you hear in the news. I got an alert from, I'm a registered member of AARP. It's the coolest thing ever. But I got an alert from a news article that they emailed out today, talking about like the 10 most beneficial financial things that you can do for yourself in 2023. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure it talks about debt, budgeting, saving, 401k. It probably talks about all the very, very stereotypical, generic things that you can do. But that is not what's going to move the needle for you. That's not like it's not going
to make you stay the course.
You're going to find out who you are. You're going to be successful if and when you individualize your goals, make them incredibly incredibly personal to you, and you go through some vetting process to make sure that they're your own goals.
Mm-hmm.
When you do these things, it's going to be worth the time and energy to build and develop a plan, and you're going to stay committed to it because it's carrying you from where you are to where you ultimately want to be. And it's so important that you get there. We're talking about the type of conviction where it's like, if I don't accomplish this in my life, I will be unfulfilled. I will be sad. I will have missed the mark. Those are the kinds of goals that we want to chase and tackle with people.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we can get those kinds of things, like I know, like I have goals for me that it's like, if I can't accomplish these things, then I don't know that I would be able to call myself a good dad. Right. Like if I can't do these certain things, I don't know that I can be able to call myself a good friend or, good spouse or a good whatever. And so like, those are the kinds of goals that become wildly important when you can make your goals about you.
And we can see it with clients. Like you can literally see, 2022 was a rough year in the market.
Oh yeah.
But the clients that had those personal goals, it was I would say it's a little bit smoother ride for them this year.
I don't know that it's smoother. They just know that it's okay.
Yeah.
They're going to weather a storm,
yep. And they're not panicking.
They're not. Yeah. Like if you want something, you're going to do it. Even like when you were wanting to quit soda because it's a health concern for you, like you got cravings. Right. You wanted the caffeine, you wanted the sugar, you were sitting in your car, you were driving through a fast food lane, and you're like, man, I got to go with water, and I don't want it, but I'm going to do it because this is important. And so just as much as you weathered storms and that kind of stuff, like you weather these financial storms like what 2022 presented us, and you stick to a plan. It doesn't mean you don't pay attention to what's going on. It doesn't mean we don't do our own analysis and we keep doing our homework. You always do that.
Right.
That's being healthy too.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we don't just like, I literally have parents that have turned off contributions to a savings investment account for their children's education. And that's fine, but they didn't do it because their cash flow was hurting. They didn't do it because of, necessity. They did it because they didn't like the direction of the geopolitical and other parts of our world and economy, and they didn't like the things that were going on, and they didn't like the market volatility. And I guess at the end of the day, I'd probably question whether that was actually an important goal to them. Maybe they just had a college savings plan because that's what every one of their friends, kids' friends, and keeping up with the Joneses kind of thing. Like they were just doing what everybody else did, and they were like, hey, this is what good parents do. Right. It wasn't conviction. It was, let's just do it because everyone else is doing it, and it seems and sounds like the right thing. Not saying that it is or isn't for them, but they quit. So I don't think there was a lot of conviction behind them, emotion of the effort. So anyway, we're 2 weeks into our email campaign, the Sunday series, and we talked about, making unique goals. We're obviously pretty bad at it. It takes a lot of work. Josh and I do a lot of homework and a lot of research on the kind of, we call this money therapy. Like we do a lot of research into how to interact with people to pull those unique goals out. We've implemented a program to monitor progress. It's so important, and you can do this on your own. It's just getting started. Sometimes you don't know what you don't know. So if you have a need of creating personal goals that motivate you, send us an email, reach out to us. We're at harpwithwealthpartners.com. Our emails are on there. Contact information is on there. You need to get a hold of us because we want to help. And if you want to do it on your own, there's books, there's all kinds of stuff.
Challenge yourself. Yeah. Like, don't just stick with the cookie cutter stuff.
Yeah. Don't take goals on just because your neighbor's doing it. If you're doing something strictly because somebody gave you like one little, talk about something they heard or something they're doing or something that worked for them, you're not doing yourself a service to develop a unique and individual plan that's going to carry you to where you ultimately need to be. And that is podcast number 1 of the year. You got any parting words?
1 of the year. Yeah, just challenge yourself with your New Year's resolutions. It's you go to the gym. New Year's, like tonight when I go up there, it's gonna be packed. And then in 2 months, it's gonna be back to normal. The regulars are gonna be in there.
So January 15th is National Quitters Day.
Is it really?
It is. And it's National Quitters Day because there was a huge study that was done, and it stated that most New Year's resolutions are fully abandoned
by the 15th,
within 2 weeks of creation.
Yep.
So January 14th would probably be that 2-week measurement mark. So, hey, January 15th, it's National Quitters Day.
Yep.
It's hard, like creating new habit forming. We sent out an email recently. We got you can find some stuff out there about like habit forming, and we have some tools, we have some tricks that we apply. It's not tricks like it's science that we're saying, hey, let's try it this way. And if it works with the client, great. If it doesn't, we move on to a different strategy. Yep. Like these mind kind of strategies, right? So we do a lot there, but yeah, so create your goals. A lot of us we're talking about goals a lot right now because of New Year's resolutions that I've made a million of them. I'm probably the best at quitting them. Like I have had a million New Year's resolutions that I have abandoned. But the ones that were really, really important, if I wasn't successful at them, it definitely shaped my life in a way that I'm better now because I went through some of the process, right? So even the whole like shoot for the moon, if you miss, you're
right
amongst the stars kind of thing. Get out there, create goals, write them down, organize them, prioritize them, and then create a process that you can, one, be held accountable to achieving them and monitoring your progress in achieving them. Because the next part of this, or I shouldn't say the next, an important part of this is at the end of the year, looking back and saying, hey, I had these goals.
Right.
How did I do?
I accomplished this, that. Yep.
Because now you're going to know, you're going to be able to pat yourself on the back for some success, but also you're going to see some places that you missed and you didn't do quite as much. And was that because the goals were too lofty? Was that because you failed? Why did you fail if you did fail? We can learn so much about ourselves in this process. And then next December 31st, we can create new goals with that like knowledge of who we are as people and what we messed up on last year, and put in new brain tricks, and be even more successful in the years ahead. So that's it.
Yep. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Talk to you guys again.
We hope you learned from our conversation today. It is important to us that you know this is for educational purposes and not intended to be considered specific advice for any individual listener. If something we discussed is relevant to you and you have questions of how it might be applicable to your specific situation, please reach out to your financial professional. Of course, we are happy to have further conversations with you regarding specific questions or applications to your individual financial situation. With that, here are a few disclosures. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA, SIPC. Investment advice offered through Private Advisor Group, a registered investment advisor. Private Advisor Group and Harpeth Wealth Partners are separate entities from LPL Financial. The opinions voiced in this material are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision. All performance referenced is historical and is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Hypothetical examples presented are not representative of any specific investments. Your results may vary. With that, thank you, and we look forward to having you back. Take care.